Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I go by Strange Online, and today we're going to be creating some fan art for my fan fiction. Now that sounds a little weird. I know it sounds a little weird, but first, can we pay attention to how cute this pen is? I got it as a gift from my mom. I just had to shout her out real quick because this is going to be a bit of a weird topic. Before we hop into that weird topic, I just wanted to talk about the illustration I'm doing at hand. So, this is another fan art video. I'm so sorry, guys. I'll make some original content at some point in my life, but for now, we're just going to continue doing fan art because that's what I want to do. So this fan art is DSMP fan art, and please, before you click off the video, I know it's been years, but I don't know, man. I've been rewatching a lot of old VODs from 2020 because I've been in a nostalgic mood lately. Well, I mean, when am I not in a nostalgic mood? Let's be real. But the reality is that I enjoy drawing the characters as controversial as some of them are now. So this video is going to consist of 2-page illustration. This first page is just my warm-up. I'm just using it as a sort of ease the transition of my second page, which will be an illustration of an actual scene from my fan fiction. And I look forward to actually talking about that when the time is right. Now you're probably wondering, what is up with that polar bear? And I cannot tell you. I really do not know how to draw animals. It's been a struggle of mine since I was young, and since I was starting off art. I've always wanted to draw animals, but I never practiced them, and unfortunately, you can see the result of it right there. It's been a while since I've created DSMP fan art. Listen, guys, I just had to confess because this is my mortal sin. This is what keeps me bound to this earth. It isn't something that I'm proud of, but I also wanted to talk about the fact that it's kind of a shame that I'm not proud of myself for creating something. And I think it's so niche that I just need to talk about it because I barely see anyone discussing this online. Nobody will confess to their mortal sins. So here I am. Here I am to be the savior of these people. In case you can't tell, the polar bear is supposed to be Steve from Techno's cabin, his pet, I guess. And I'm also currently drawing Tommy, but in his Antarctic empire kind of look. My fanfiction revolves around him after exile, and you're probably like, oh, here we go, another one of these. And I'll say it's basic as hell. I really enjoyed that sort of I guess arc in the DSMP. I never really watched a lot of other people's POVs other than Technoblade and Tommy because those two are my favorite creators from the DSMP, so I just mainly stuck to them. My fanfiction is right after Tommy escapes exile. It starts there. I won't spoil too much of it, but it does kind of diverge from the canon, and it's not finished, but I do have all of it planned out. And if you're interested in reading it, maybe I'll put it down in the description. If not, that's fine. I'm mainly just talking about it because I have been creating it for a few years now, and it's just one of those things where it's just enjoyable to talk about sometimes. Here, I'm just showing off some fan art I've done in the past because I was actually really proud of this one, and I thought it would be cool to show off because I don't know, I just was feeling like it when I was recording, I guess. Before I keep talking, let's take a moment to kind of see what I've done with this illustration. In case you didn't notice earlier, I used an acrylic marker to go over the previous drawing, I guess, that I had done. So I took this pen, drew really lazily, very loosely, and then I'm going back in with my micron pen to define the lines that I had previously gone over. This kind of one makes it easier to get cleaner lines in the after process, and then two, it just kind of gives this cool effect of having like a lower layer. Going back to the topic at hand, I also wanted to talk a lot about cringe culture and all of the stuff surrounding, like, I guess, the stigma of fan fiction, especially nowadays, where it's kind of like I see a lot of people creating fan art. Not so many people confess to making fan fictions, and I think that's really interesting. The reason that I think it's interesting is also because of the way that we've seen it be like brought to life in the film kind of industry, where like a lot of fan fictions are getting adapted into kind of cheesy films for a lot like the general public. And I think that it's not only that, but it's also just the way that people handle things online nowadays is definitely more like embarrassing to say something online than it was a couple of years ago. And I just feel like that's such a shame nowadays, especially considering like, people should be allowed to discuss what they like without being afraid that they're going to be judged. Of course, being online and being in the outer public comes with the risk of, people can say whatever they want because you're using a social space to talk about the topics that you want to discuss. But it's also sort of a thing where, like, it's no longer somebody just commenting on your post and saying, ew, that's cringe. It's more so like this popularity of certain creators bringing forth that content, making content with content that they don't enjoy in order to kind of ostracize that community of people or that fandom. So that's why I'm kind of making this video because um I would consider myself somebody who can feel embarrassed pretty easily. I don't feel like I have much experience with just doing whatever I want and, you know, f f everybody who doesn't agree with me. I'm very like open to topics that I'm not familiar with. A lot of my experience in cringe culture actually comes from being an observer online. I don't really like before this, obviously, I didn't really post often except for like a few years ago I had a channel, but even then my channel was super small and like nobody was really commenting on my videos, so I never got backlash for what I was doing online. Now, I'm interjecting here to talk about the illustration that I'm currently working on. Don't get too excited because I actually ended up not doing this illustration that I'm doing currently. I was going to do a whole landscape thing, but I decided to do something more pertaining to my fan fiction because I just ended up feeling like it and I really wasn't feeling this landscape thing. I was going to have techno in the distance and have Tommy in the foreground, but I decided that I wanted to save this like idea for a later date. So if you're interested in seeing me create this fan art on a later date, on a later video, please let me know in the comments down below and I will definitely just, consider it. back to what I was saying about cringe culture. As an observer, I didn't really understand like how it necessarily felt to be on the side of like being made fun of constantly for posting things online and just all this stuff. And even though I wasn't personally affected by it, I know that there was plenty of people online who were. I don't know anybody personally who has, been in the backlash of being cringe or whatever on the internet, but I know that there are like friends of mine who have felt like insecure about just talking about like something that they enjoy because they're scared that, they're going to be judged. And that's something that didn't just appear from the internet. It's always been around, but I think it's important to talk about the manifestation of it online because I feel like now more than ever it is just way bigger and way more aggressive than it used to be. This isn't like something new. Obviously, as I've stated, it's definitely not something new. I think it's more popular to make content making fun of people than actually make content that has something worthwhile to say about a piece of media or something like, you know, it's just easy. And I don't want to judge anybody for what they choose to do online, whether it is something they're talking about because they love or they're criticizing somebody with constructive criticism. But I think that's what is important to talk about. The difference between constructive criticism and just straight up bashing somebody for enjoying something that really, in the end of the day, isn't harming anybody. For the longest time, I did not tell people that I write fan fiction. That is just something that I never thought I would just say out. But I've been practicing a lot with just doing the things that I love without having to feel so paranoid about people's perception of me. Because at the end of the day, it makes me happy. And I am in pursuit of happiness for however long I live. This may seem like really dumb because it's like, oh my god, you're talking about like the DSMP. You're talking about something that, people were doing some crazy stuff for. And I agree. There were some people online who were just doing the craziest things that I have ever seen, especially during this era. But I think we're past the point where we don't have to keep things secret forever. And I think that it's fun to enjoy the things you like authentically without having to fear that somebody is going to come and judge you for it and make a video about it online, which still is so crazy to me. I want to talk about the illustration that I'm currently working on. So I'm kind of working on this scene that I have in my fanfiction. I know. This scene in my fanfiction is depicting Technoblade giving Tommy a haircut, which is, I don't know if that's obvious from the drawing right now because it's so faint, but I already, erased my sketch underneath. I really enjoyed recreating this moment from my fanfiction a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't think I wouldn't enjoy it, but I was just like, this is just gonna be another, fan art that I'm creating. But I actually enjoyed it because it felt like I was bringing to life something that I had only on the screen, like how somebody can say a picture can say 1,000 words. It felt like the definition of that. I felt like I was properly displaying what I wanted to. And I will say, I'm a better artist, I'm a better visual artist than I am a writer. I am not that great of a writer. And that's partially why I write. I write fanfiction because I kind of don't have the pressure of creating characters that are, already interesting because I already have the format, I already have the characters, I already have the environment. All I have to do is write. And I think that's such a great way to practice creative writing. Genuinely, if you are interested in writing and you feel a little like pressured to, create, one of the best ways to practice, in my opinion, is fan fiction. Create something out of characters that you love from a show that you love, or a movie that you love, or a book that you love, and just write. It can be an exact scene from that movie or show, and you just like write what happens, but it's sort of practicing your descriptions and everything else, and it's really good practice. Genuinely, it is great practice. In this fan art, I'm pretty proud of the way that I drew Technoblade's hands. I don't know, I was using a reference for the pose, so maybe that's why they turned out so well. I should definitely be using references more often. So here I'm starting off on Tommy, and for some reason I was really struggling with his face. Like, I could not get him to look the same way that I had drawn him in the past. Of course, my art style has changed since then, but I think it was more so because I haven't drawn his character in so long. It just felt out of place. They both are kind of struggling with same face syndrome right now, but it's just, I haven't drawn them in so long that it feels just weird. I think that if I continue drawing them, I definitely need to practice Tommy's, like, especially his face. I try to make sure that my characters all look different and have different, features. Obviously, if they're supposed to look similar, then they look similar, but I try to give them different noses, different, like, eyes. The mouths usually are lines, so there's not really much I can do with that, but I still try to make it look a little different from each face that I draw. And here I'm bringing out my markers, finally, my alcohol-based markers, and I decided I wanted to do this in a grayscale for this art, mainly because I wanted the line arts to mainly be intact, and I felt like colors might destroy it. Here I was checking if the marker was bleeding, and yes, it was bleeding, so I took out my trusty black paper and just put it behind there. My art usually tends to be pretty colorful. As of late, I used to not ever color my drawings, but I just figured it makes my sketchbook look more interesting when I do add color, even if it's not like extravagant. I mainly have been adding color also because I've been using my acrylic markers, and as you know, like I love those things. I need to get more of them. Some of them are drying out and it's making me sad. But for now, I just wanted to kind of keep this a low-key drawing, you know? I didn't want it to look so distracting because I was really proud of the line art. So I wanted to go back to what I was touching on before with cringe culture. I want to make it a point that I am not condoning like people being weird online, because sometimes people need to be shied away from the internet a bit, especially if they're being creeps. That's mainly what I'm talking about, like creepy people on the internet. But I think that there is like sort of this question of who's deciding what's normal, you know, and I feel like some people aren't in the right to be criticizing others for certain interest. You know what I mean? I'm not exactly innocent either. I don't want to make it seem like I've never consumed content that is criticizing like other people, because criticism can be healthy and it can be helpful, but there is a certain amount that is just excessive. Um like for example, I have watched creators. I won't name specific ones because I don't want to like make it seem like I'm bashing anybody. Because I really am not trying to do that. You know, everybody has to eat at the end of the day. If that's how you make your bank, you know, sure. But I think that's the difference, is like you're criticizing somebody with constructive criticism, or you're just blatantly harassing somebody online. That's what makes the difference. I've also been seeing a lot about a sentiment of bringing back bullying and harassment, and I just have to say, I kind of don't agree with that at all. As somebody who has known, like, people who have been affected by bullying, I don't think it's right to really be saying that. And I know, understand that there can be jokes, you know, thrown about it, but I have seen people genuinely believe that bullying is the answer to people who just want to express themselves online, and I think it's a little weird. Like, for you to care so much about what people do on their in their free time is kind of just off-putting. And I think those types of people really need a reality check within themselves, because I feel like it's more about how they feel about themselves rather than how they feel about the people they're judging online. Harassment and bullying has never been the solution for literally anything. Maybe sometimes if you're talking about creeps online, then I'll let it slide. Otherwise, I don't think that it really is going to solve anything. And at the end of the day, the people that you see online, you do not know. You may think that you know somebody, but behind closed doors, nobody knows what is going on in their personal lives, and nobody understands what they go through on a daily basis. They may be really privileged, but they may also be suffering from some sort of mental illness, or suffering from abuse, or suffering from stuff that we wouldn't even know about. So to say that bullying and harassment is like somehow the solution to them just trying to have this form of escapism is a really weird way to approach a non-issue. However, I don't want to end this video on a low note. I do want to know what your guys' thoughts on this is. I'm sure I haven't touched on all my opinions, but we can't sit here all day and listen to that, can we? Along with that, I would love to hear about what you guys are interested in. It doesn't have to be anything specific or fandom related. I just love hearing about stuff that people like and enjoy and the way that they, consume content online. Because sometimes it's stuff that I wouldn't have even thought about, like the fact that people enjoy. And then it is, and I'm like, oh my god, that's really cool. So if you have anything specific that you've never like mentioned online, of course, if you're comfortable with it, go ahead, comment it down below. If you're not, then you don't owe it to anybody to also explain what you like and what you don't like. This video is kind of just like me confessing to all my guilty pleasures. It's pretty cool to just sit here and talk about stuff that I do that I probably wouldn't have said years ago. With that, I want to thank you for being a part of this video and watching it through. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it and maybe even toss me a subscribe if you're feeling like it. Bye!